So this second state visit, we all remember the first one. For some reason, in my mind, it's the moment he physically eclipsed the Queen because he's so big and she was so tiny. But that was only a brief moment, but a very funny one. But this is an unprecedented second state visit for a US president, isn't it?
Yeah, and my memories of the first one of that Trump baby blimp over London as well, Sheila. But this is unprecedented, and we are now just hours away from the start of a great big transatlantic schmoofest, because the red carpet will well and truly be rolled out for Donald Trump and his entourage, and the royal family are the diplomatic ace card for Keir Starmer's government in all of that. We know that President Trump is a huge fan of the monarchy and all things royal. He may be very different in his opinions and leanings to King Charles, but actually they've struck up quite a relationship. They've been pen pals over the last few years, as has the King with the First Lady as well. And he's a big fan of Prince William, describing him as a good-looking guy. And so we're going to be seeing a key role for the Prince and Princess of Wales tomorrow as well. They'll be doing the first welcome at Windsor Castle before the formal greeting by the King and Queen Camilla, who incidentally is unwell today. She's had to pull out of the Duchess of Kent's funeral, but the hope is that she will be there for all of the key events tomorrow.
And that meeting by the Prince and Princess of Wales, that sort of is one that leads to the meeting with the King and hopefully the Queen as well.
Yes. So when the President and the First Lady arrive on the East Lawn at Windsor Castle, they'll first be greeted by the Prince and Princess of Wales, and then the formal welcome by the King and Queen. There are going to be gun salutes on the lawn of Windsor Castle and simultaneously at the Tower of London. They're going to inspect the Guard of Honour. They're going to head off on a carriage procession through the Windsor estate to the castle. Important that I say the Windsor estate, because
not the town.
There's very little public involvement in this. Protests planned for London, but Donald Trump's not going to get anywhere near members of the public during this very carefully choreographed visit. And it all builds to a big state banquet in Windsor Castle. We saw what it was going to look like when President Macron was here. A glittering affair, all about massaging that already very large Trump ego. But a more poignant moment in the afternoon tomorrow as well, when the President and the First Lady will pay a private visit to St George's Chapel and pay their respects to the late Queen.
And you mentioned the Duchess of Kent's funeral and Queen Camilla not attending it today. There's such an interesting thing going on here at this funeral, isn't it? And, all respects to her and her family on the day of the funeral. But you can't ignore the fact that when the coffin was taken into the Catholic Westminster Cathedral yesterday evening, it was draped in the Royal Standard, and the King and I'm told the Prince and Princess of Wales are both attending that service. That's an historic moment in and of itself, isn't it? For royal reasons, let alone the funeral.
It really is. It is the first requiem mass Catholic funeral to take place for a member of the royal family in recent British history. It is had a message from the new Pope has been read out during that service. As you said, the Duchess of Kent's coffin was carried in the royal hearse, draped in the Royal Standard yesterday. Last night she lay in rest at Westminster Cathedral, and then members of the royal family, senior members of the royal family, the King, not Queen Camilla because of her sinusitis, but the Prince and Princess of Wales among the mourners at that ceremony that's taking place now. And the Duchess of Kent converted to Catholicism in 1994, and that was a big deal at the time, but she did so with the blessing of Queen Elizabeth, her husband's cousin. And I think that big turnout by senior members of the royal family today shows that just what an important member of the family she was, having stepped back from public life and royal duties to become a teacher, but very, very highly regarded for the work that she'd done and very much loved member of the family.
Thank you very much indeed, Sarah. Good to talk to you. Sarah Hewson, journalist and royal commentator there, talking to us about a number of things. Lewis Goodall, presenter of Sundays with Lewis Goodall on LBC, co-host of Global's podcast, The News Agents, is here with me as well. Don't worry, I'm not going to throw the royals at you. Let's talk.
Oh, no, let's do it.
Hey, HT. I can't avoid it. They're meeting Donald Trump.
I was just thinking, who was the last monarch of England or king or queen of England to have a Catholic funeral?
Oh, we're going back 1,000 years, aren't we?
We're going back a bit now, aren't we?
Go on.
Have a guess. Come on. Come on, listeners. Come on, tune in.
Pre-Henry VIII.
No, post Henry VIII.
Oh, Mary.
Mary. There we go. 1558. You got to go.
I rescued myself there.
You have got to get up very early in the morning to catch Shelagh Fogarty out. Particularly on Catholic funerals.
Yeah, exactly. We'll have them eventually, I'm telling you. I remember on the day of the coronation, see, I'm doing royals, can't help myself. On the day of the coronation, I spoke to, or the day before it was, I spoke to Cardinal Vincent Nichols about the ceremony and how he was, for the first time, going to be a Cardinal of Independence. And he said, with a bit of mischief in his face, he said to me, well, of course it is originally a Catholic service. Of course it is. How
I didn't think we'd be doing Reformation chat, but you know what? I'm here for it.
Listen, I read 3 books set in the 1600s on my holiday. What the hell? I don't know.
Hey, not enough.
It's a complete fluke. I don't know how it happened, but it did. Anyway, listen, this state visit, he's going to get the royal fairy dust sprinkled in a big way, isn't he?
Yes, he is. And look, it's a card that Keir Starmer played really early on, I think to some people's surprise, because it's clearly something that he wanted. No US president has had it before. Even previous 2-term presidents have tended to only have one: Obama, Reagan, Clinton and so on, Bush. And he deployed it early on. Some people were surprised. I think he did it partly to try and cement his relationship, which I have to say, you talk to people in Number 10 and you sort of say to them, well, I mean, do they really get on? You can't quite imagine it. These two completely different personalities. You'd think it'd be really sort of cold or difficult, or that there wouldn't be any spark. And they say they genuinely really do. And perhaps that is partly, I think, down to some adroitness on Keir Starmer's part in terms of playing the diplomatic game. I think part of it, they would say, perhaps a bit more candidly, is that in terms of sort of personality types, they kind of gel, partly because, if you think about it, Trump tends to dislike people who he thinks are a kind of threat in the limelight to him. And Starmer, and this is actually a problem for him sometimes in domestic politics, but in international politics, that he doesn't threaten Trump's kind of, he doesn't try and take any of the attention away from Trump.
He doesn't radiate.
No, he's happy to be, not supplicant, but he's happy to allow Trump to have the limelight, right? And if you think about the figures that maybe he's had a more testy relationship with, Zelensky, someone who perhaps is the only person in the world who can rival Trump for attention. Macron, I mean, a few weeks ago, Trump said that Macron was an attention seeker, which is quite the charge from someone like Trump. But
he's not wrong, though, is he?
Well, he's not wrong. No, exactly. I mean, and it takes one to know one,
It
Don?
does, yeah.
But, but that's the thing. So, Starmer, I think they do get on. But, of course, as we've known before, it happened with Theresa May as well. As soon as he steps foot into Stansted, the poor man, heaven help him, as soon as he steps into Stansted, which is where he's landing, it is a moment where for those 48 hours or so, the British government is on high alert, because absolutely, it's cliche now to say with Trump, but normally these state visits, they are boring, dull, stately affairs. But with Trump, what they are is just every single moment anything can happen. As Theresa May found out to her cost when we had the last state visit, and it was all supposed to be deeply choreographed and whatever it was. Air Force One touches down. What happens? The Sun drops the next day. So he's done an interview with the Sun where he basically says Boris Johnson could get a better Brexit deal than Theresa May. All hell breaks loose.
I'd forgotten that. Yeah. And also just the reality of the news stories swirling around us at the moment, both in America and here, and that connected story, the Mandelson story, the timing of that's dreadful, isn't it?
I think the timing is absolutely terrible for Number 10 on so many different reasons. I mean, one you just mentioned, Shelagh, the Mandelson stuff, dreadful. What was one of the reasons, my understanding is, and it was obvious anyway, why did Starmer cling on to Mandelson for so long? Part of it was around Morgan McSweeney and his association with Mandelson, that they're sort of political allies. But I think it was obvious that if they had in letting Mandelson go, particularly at that moment, just pre-state visit, why were they letting him go? Well, it became clear that Mandelson's relationship with Epstein was even deeper, even closer, if you listen to the Number 10 line, than they knew. Who else had a very deep and close relationship with Donald Trump? Why do we even know about those Mandelson emails? Well, because it's true, because of Trump. Because the House of Representatives Committee, which is looking into all of this, released this cache of documents, including that very embarrassing drawing, which Trump says is fake and whatever. So it was clear they were trying to minimise embarrassment to Trump. Now, in the end, the political dam burst. They couldn't do it. But that's deeply, deeply, deeply poor timing. And then, of course, the Charlie Kirk issue around free speech and everything like that as well. Also really problematic and difficult.
But I noticed that Prince Andrew has attended the funeral of the Duchess of Kent. But he won't be swirling around in this state visit, will he?
I think it's fair to say that Prince Andrew may be off the official invite list. I'm not sure that Prince Andrew's appearance necessarily will be the most welcome or the most apposite at this moment.
And listen, before you go, after 3, I'm going to talk about this Paul Ovenden story and how he has left his job, had to leave his job, because of... I only learnt this morning it was because he was talking about words of other people.
Indeed.
Women who were making, a group of women colleagues who were making comments about Diane Abbott in a kind of hypersexual way.
Yes.
And that he recounted those those comments. Has he lost his job because, I mean, these were 8 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago. He wasn't the source of the comments, was it even?
No, he wasn't. And I think there is a lot of disquiet among members of sort of Team Starmer about this. I mean, Paul Ovenden, not a household name, but was a key lieutenant for Keir Starmer for a very, very long time. He himself has said that he was stupid, that he may have sort of added as part of this conversation and made stupid comments. It was eight years or so ago. I think it's a reflection. He's sort of unfortunate in one sense. I mean, clearly stupid comments, etc., offensive to Diane Abbott, of course. Clearly he's probably also a victim of the political moment in which he finds himself, exactly the moment we've just been discussing, Sheila. If Starmer was stronger, these things are always a reflection to some extent of the strength or weakness or frailties or otherwise of the Prime Minister of the day at that moment. If Starmer was feeling strong and he had momentum and whatever, he'd probably just say, look, Paul Ovenden has apologised or whatever. But he obviously feels and felt that this was just a fight that he couldn't or wouldn't prosecute. I think there's a wider question, which I'm sure you'll be discussing after 3, which is how many of us would honestly like to show our WhatsApps to the world in politics and media? Would there be anyone left in the politics and media who, might not have made an embarrassing comment or an unpleasant comment about a colleague? Obviously not you or I,
Speak for yourself, Liz
and
Goodall.
Certainly not about each other.
I
only praise, particularly your knowledge of pre-Restoration England, which is the only England worth having, by the way.
It is the only England worth having. I only tweet about fluffy kittens and cakes.
Of course you do.
That's it.
I don't believe it.
That's it.
I don't believe it. Old Shelagh Acid Tongue Fogarty. I'm not so sure.
That's me. Thanks, Lewis.